right, Gridiron 360, Dave and Bill back in here. Talking NFL free agency in the AFC East. We've covered the Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets. We move on to the Buffalo Bills, one of the wild card representatives for the AFC as they battled it out all the way to the end with the New England Patriots. And now with the news and the updates we just brought on, I mean, things are looking even better for them. We talked about them bringing in outside linebacker Mario Addison from Carolina. Shaq Lawson went from their team to Miami. They bring in A.J. Klein, outside linebacker from New Orleans. They bring in Tyler Matakevich, inside linebacker from Pittsburgh. They bring in Josh Norman, cornerback from Washington, and their D-tackle, Jordan Phillips, goes to Arizona. So here's what they have left in the way of free agency as it stands. Outside linebacker Lorenzo Alexander, 37 years old now. Kevin Johnson, cornerback. Adrian Waddle, right tackle. Frank Gore, running back. Maurice Alexander, linebacker. Julian Stanford, outside linebacker. Kirk Coleman, free safety. Corey Liuget, D-tackle. Talked about him. Sonoris Perry, running back. Isaiah McKenzie, wide receiver. Dean Marlowe, strong safety. Isaac Asiata, guard. That is what's left in terms of free agency for the Buffalo Bills. Now, Buffalo picks number 22 in this year's 2020 NFL Draft. They currently sit at number 3 overall in terms of cap space out of 32 teams with $77 million. So they have some money to spend. They've spent some, let some go. We look at positions of need. Defensive end. We might say defensive line altogether too. There,
yeah, they really need a mixture now with kind of some of the moves.
Yep. Wide receiver. We do know now that they have brought in Stephon Diggs, so that might be
mark that off and say mid to late round
draft pick for another.
Remember, they still have Cole
receiver.
Beasley, who now gets to play that slot role that he's really designed for.
So that position kind of, not that they don't need it, but again, I agree with you. If they were to stack up there, it's probably going to be in a late round.
Yep.
Offensive line, outside linebacker, running back. We say that because Frank Gore is on the market. He's long in the tooth, 37. Devin Singletary, they picked him up last year in the draft. Started to come on towards the end of the year. Got banged up a little bit, so they do have to have someone to spell him.
That might be interesting. They might be like a Jordan Howard candidate.
They could
kind of someone like
they
that.
Could be.
A little thump, a little bit guy could take some of the heavy hits.
Sure. And we said what else? Offensive lineman and linebacker, outside linebacker in particular. Obviously, bringing in A.J. Klein from New Orleans, and Mario Addison from Carolina, both outside linebackers. They also brought in the Matakevich guy from Pittsburgh, who's an inside linebacker. So they're kind of shoring up that. I don't know if that's going to be as much of a focus, maybe something in the draft for some youth there. So that kind of whittles it down to DN/D-line, offensive line, running back.
I think right now, I like what they've done as far as positioning themselves. They had a young defense. They still have a young defense. They are short up the middle. I mean, you got to talk about a team with Ed Oliver, and you got Tremaine Edmonds playing up the middle, and Tremaine Edmonds has proven to be a pretty good linebacker.
Pretty damn good, man.
So
I like that guy a lot.
I think
they've got Buddy in the backfield. What's his name? White, Tre'Davious White.
Well, what I like about that is he's still on a cheap rookie deal. And then you've got Josh,
Edmonds.
Yeah, and you've got
So's Oliver.
Well, Edmonds was a first rounder though, so at least he's somewhat expensive, and Oliver was too. But Tre'Davious White was not. But the good part is you brought in Josh Norman, and this is the first time where Josh Norman is going to be expected to play second fiddle.
That's right.
And you might get some resurgence out of him. And obviously they brought him in on a cheap. So I really like that signing in the sense that, we're not –
He's not their number one.
Josh Norman has failed in his contract because he was expected to be a totally different corner than what they're bringing in now. He can play that physical Probably maybe I don't know if they flip sides. He might play more of like a boundary corner as opposed to a field corner because Tre'Davious can go out there and cover and run with guys, and that allows him to be physical. And if you remember, that was one big part of his game. And even if he slows down, they can kind of get him against more physical receivers. Because he can't run with the guys like they wanted him to. Like they wanted him to chase guys around the field. Whoever your best was, your Julio Joneses, your AJ Greens, your Amari Coopers, Nuke Hopkins, they wanted all that stuff. And that's not who he is. So I think right now they're in a good position. I got to tell you, at running back, you hear me, I'm all about second round running backs this year. That's something they could even get some value there. But I also think, like I said, Jordan Howard, do you want to go get a thumper and take some miles off of Singletary? Singletary has proved that he is effective and elusive. His durability is probably the one question mark he has to answer. But I think right now this team continue to kind of slowly but surely be young on defense as much as you possibly can and start building this offense. And I think the Stephon Diggs. Now, granted, I will say this. I forget. What did they give up for Diggs? Was it a first rounder and then a fifth and a sixth this year?
Yes.
This year alone. So they're going to be a little thinner in the draft status. So maybe the running back out in free agency is the way to go and get a little bit of a retread. And again, I look at Jordan Howard. I think that's he's a smash mouth player. They do play a little bit of smash mouth running game at times because they have a smash mouth quarterback runner, so they can kind of do some of that stuff. I think this is a team, and obviously with the change in New England at quarterback, Buffalo comes in as definitely the favorite to win the division next year. And they might be able to walk away with it if Miami doesn't make, major strides.
Yeah, I
don't want to count New England out, but there's a lot missing right now, and we don't know how it's going to get filled.
Yeah, I think they have, I'm looking at their defense. They've got, you still got Jerry Hughes as a D end. You got Ed Oliver and Star Lotulelei as their D tackles. Trent Murphy is their other D end. Looking in their linebacking core, sans what they just picked up, they have Matt Milano, Vosine Joseph, again, Trey Edmonds. And then in their secondary, they've got Levi Wallace as a corner. He's real good. Tre'Davious White as a corner. Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer as their safeties. And now they've brought in, Josh Norman. So, I think they could put more pieces on that D. If they imagine, because I think Jerry Hughes is a great D end, and Star Lotulelei is okay, and Ed Oliver I think is good and getting better, and Trent Murphy at the other D end. If they could replace that with just some superstar in some way.
Yeah, well, here's the thing is, do they have the ability to be aggressive and understand part of what's going to come out of this is we're going to get into the offseason and there's going to be cuts.
They're number 3. They have $77 million. Now that's, they've made some moves, but moves being plus and minus. They've brought guys in and they've lost guys. So they're probably still fairly close to where they are. You talk about a team like my New York Giants having interest in the Jadeveon Clowney market. They have money. What if they bought somebody like that and to go on the other side to take where Shaq lost? Now, Shaq played a lot this year, but he wasn't always the starter. They bought him in a lot. They rotated him in a lot. Some games he started. But suppose they went out and brought in someone like that, like a Jadeveon Clowney to come off the edge with the other guys on that line that I just mentioned, Lotulelei, Oliver, Phillips, or not Phillips. Who the hell was it? I just lost their other Jerry Hughes. So you bring in somebody else there that could be a stud. Obviously, they shored up some linebackers. I don't think they're going to do anything with that in free agency. Maybe somewhere late in the draft. Secondary, they bought in a guy for their corner. They could bring in somebody else, get another really good corner bought in. Safety, they got a couple good safeties. I think that could be a focus.
They could go Everson Griffin. It's another one.
Everson Griffin, another DN, yeah.
Because they're right now, obviously this is now going to be moving very, very quickly. But, the Bills still stand at number 5 in cap space. Again, this is accounting for the moves.
Yeah, post these moves. So they're still way up there.
Yeah, they got $52 million.
Look, I think they could go. I think that, we already wrote their needs, But yeah, that DN now that you say is coming more to the forefront. Yeah, I think they could totally go get because of where they sit in the draft at number 22. Obviously Chase Young is going to be gone. You're probably looking Epineza probably gone. You're probably looking at that Gross Matos or somebody like that from Penn State still there.
Which wouldn't be horrible on a speed because you'd have speed. But they, you know what they probably really need is who is going to be their D tackle opposite Oliver because they lost
Lele.
And how big is he? Is he a space eater? He's big, but is he that big? Is he like 330?
No,
320, 330?
I'll give it to you right now, but he's a hoss.
Because then
remember, they still have Corey Legit that they could re-sign too. Okay,
because Gross Matos is just a lighter DN, and I'm just trying to figure out. You don't want to be too light on your line. Jerry Hughes isn't super light. Ed Oliver is more of a speedster on the D tackle, a penetrator. So I'm just trying to,
Lotulelei is let's see, he's like 6'2". He weighs 311.
Okay.
So he's a load. He's a load, dude. He's not as tall as some of the other guys, but he's a wide body.
Okay.
He was a nose tackle at Utah in college.
I'm just trying to think of that defense. He's not that big where he is an automatic double teamer. I mean, I use Will Fork as an extreme example, but usually when you go nose, you're looking at more of like a 325.
Hell, man, there are some pieces out there at the D tackle. I mean, I'm going to rattle off three right quick that are older, that are all over 30. So you could potentially.
But it's a young defense, though, so you can afford to do
an
some
older guy and maybe get a deal on him. But you got Snacks Harrison.
I like that.
You got Gerald McCoy. You got Ndamukong Suh. I mean, those are three names right there.
I'm with you.
With the money they have, they could bring in that and even go get a
well,
DN. You said Quinn's off the table, but you mentioned Everson Griffin. Jadeveon is probably at the top of all the lists.
Well, Leonard Floyd's now out there. I don't know if that fits Buffalo, but he's out there now.
Yep. So you got some guys out there. And, I think they could do a ton with their money in free agency. They could do linebacker, or they could do D tackle. They could get an edge rusher. They could even go get another safety. Because, again, their safeties – decent, but I'm freezing up on my computer. So, but they have safety. They have
they have Micah Hyde still?
They have Micah Hyde. That's what I was thinking. They have Micah Hyde, and they have somebody else, but Hyde's okay. You could go get another safety. And then maybe try to build a little bit. 22 in the draft would be a good spot for an offensive lineman there. You could get a good one. So you could build a little line in the draft, get a running back later on, and like you said, maybe a wide receiver.
I think what we found out more than anything, this is kind of cool as this unfolds, is that Buffalo's really got some flexibility. And that's cool for them because, again, now all of a sudden, this is the top team in the division. It just as of today, I don't think you could deny that. Now, I'm not saying things can't change, and again, New England is not dead yet, but there is definitely some change going on there. So if they are the leaders, what I'm a little bit I always get, and this is why I like them. And when we talked about Miami, and I kind of want to circle back to Miami. I was worried that Miami was going to do what they did. I don't not like their picks.
You said it yesterday.
But they went for the money.
They'd be better to wait for that first round of free agency to pass and then go crazy. Yeah. But they didn't. They went right at it.
Right, and I feel like Buffalo is being patient, and they're in a very good spot. Again, they were number 3 in cap space going into free agency, and while they don't have the draft picks that Miami has, but they also were not the worst team in the NFL last year, or one of the worst 5 teams in the NFL. They were a playoff team. Yeah. So this patience is huge for them. And I think this makes them a very dangerous team, not just this year, but if they keep this pace, it makes them super dangerous the next year and the year after that. And something's being built
they
here.
Don't need
something's being built.
I don't think they need to touch their tight end room. I think Dawson.
They could probably add to it.
They
don't need
Dawson
a splash.
Knox,
they don't need a splash, but
it couldn't be a good tight end for them. And then you got Tyler Kroft behind him, who's been very decent. They don't need to waste anything on that. I don't think.
No, I don't. It's not a splash, but you can add. But that's the point: is they're adding to each one of their player groupings.
I think
making it better.
Adding a good edge rusher, maybe a D tackle, maybe a free safety in free agency. going for an offensive line in the first round, maybe a running back, second or third, wide receiver late. They could go tight end later. They've got. I'm looking at this. They're set up nicely, especially with as much money as they have.
Yeah. Now here's the thing: is what I like, and we always talk about New England. What makes I know we know you like Josh Allen.
Josh Allen, man. I always did. I like Josh Allen. I think he's a good player. I like him. I like him.
All right. Josh Allen, Kyle Allen, Brian Allen. Fuck one, marry one, kill one.
I'll definitely marry Josh Allen because he's got one of them big ones, and I'm talking about his arm.
But what I like about them, and think about this of the New England model, the model obviously that always gets talked about is don't overpay for players and trade them away. But here's the other part that I think is underrated about the New England thing. Every year, New England brought the floor, and this is kind of crazy because everybody's always trying to find the best players and to bring the ceiling up. But New England always figured out a way every year to raise the floor of all the player groupings, meaning they never had the fall off when players left because they were always raising the floor. And this is a position I think Buffalo can be in. Like you said, tight end. No, they don't need to go out and sign Austin Hooper, but if they can bring in on a cheaper deal less guys and get 3 guys. I mean, let's look at Baltimore. Baltimore, failed in the playoffs, but did pretty damn well with a tight end group. And the most notable tight end they had was the 3rd best tight end, meaning Hayden Hurst, the guy they spent the most on to get, to have. I mean, like Mark Andrews was not a high draft pick. And Nick Boyle, not splashy, but those were the 2 best tight ends they had. Is they just kind of, you keep raising the floor of these position groups without going nuts. And I think Buffalo could be very, very interesting next year.
Set up nicely. All right, so not long, but that's the Buffalo Bills. Good things, arrow pointing up. We'll move on next to the New England Patriots. Maybe a little longer. We'll see.